You are listening to Rumor Mill News Radio. This is Raylan Allen, and our very special guest for today is Clif from Half Past Human. And I'm going to have Dr. Robin Talkoff on the air also because everybody in my area was chemtrailed a few days ago. And we have all got the most horrible coughs, sinuses. I am praying I'm over mine, but just in case, when it comes on, I lose my voice completely. So I've got Dr. Robin on to help me with this. And one of our agents named IPEA has just posted something about our guest, and it's a way of explaining who Clif is. And since it appears I don't have Clif,
I'm on the line.
Oh, fantastic, Clif. Then I'm not going to have to read all about you. I'm going to let you tell all about you. But before I do that, I'm going to say our agent IPEA posted the most fascinating thing about karma. And when you were on before, you hadn't talked about that. And it's sort of like some of us, it made me think that some of us might be able to miss it. Do you want to kind of explain how karma fits into what you are doing with your WebBot project?
Yeah, it goes really deep, though.
That's fine. We're really deep.
It takes us on a strange journey here because, from my perspective, I follow what's known as the Jain perspective of karma. It's at the core of the Taoist and the Buddhist understanding of it as well as the Hindu. About the time that Buddha rose, there was a concurrent stream of enlightened people that there were like 24 of them. I forget what they were called, but they were basically enlightened ones, Maha something. And they exist going back several millions of years. Now, these from the Jain perspective. Now, these people have codified karma in a very great extent. And here's a good way to think about it. If I am correct, and my view of the universe is correct, then 22 trillion times a second, the universe sends out a pulse that travels without time instantly to the center of every galaxy. And from the center of every galaxy, it travels instantly to the center of every solar system. And from every solar system, sun, out to every planet, etc. And then also, that 22 trillion times a second pulse is what creates our bodies within our minds. It's what's called the universal presence in Jain understanding, or Buddhist for that matter. And basically the idea is this. Our brains are lucky if they're operating even at half level of efficiency if we can cope with 30 or 40 frames a second. That's why movies work, is that they just show you 40 pictures a minute very fast, or a second very fast, and you assume the motion exists in your brain and supply it. So we're operating up here at 40 frames a second, but our bodies are being created at 22 trillion times a second. Somewhere in between there is this band of X number of vibrations per second, and that's where karma exists. And karma is actually, as they understand it in these various traditions, a superfine form of matter. And this accumulates to you. So, for instance, I would never buy a lotto ticket. Not because I would be afraid of losing, but rather I would be afraid of winning. Because if you understand how karma works, people, when they buy lotto tickets, especially out of desperation, they put tons of negative energy into it. You know, I need this to save myself this way or that way or whatever. And that negative energy goes into that transaction, if you will, at a karmic level. And they've actually put karmans, these little tiny microfine particles, are generated from their concern and need and desperation and emotion, basically, put into this energy, and then whoever wins that lotto ticket wins this huge amount of accumulated negative energy, along with the money. Thus, you see why people who win all this money usually end up not enjoying it. It's actually very rare to have lotto winners do well. There's usually some complication in their lives from that point on. Well, an understanding of it is that they've accepted all of this karma with it. So when I do my reports, I'm very careful to be aware of that and how it functions within universe, and to do my best to enhance the good karma that can come from things, because karma is not indifferent. Some people would have you say karma is just, there. But in fact, there's three kinds. There's good, bad, and neutral. And I attempt to try and harmonize with the good karma and reduce as much of the bad karma as possible. Sort of makes sense?
It does completely. You were one of the things that you talked about was how the elite get involved in wars and how we pick up their karma from the wars.
And that's from the participation of it, very much like buying the lotto ticket. If you buy into all of the patriotic rah, 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 you go to the assembly at school and get all whipped up and your emotions are soaring and you've got all the hormones going and all of that, you're participating, and at that point you're generating activities that draw karmans to you and redirect them. So the same thing is done at a very much larger level, a national level, and the power elite, to a certain extent, and in many different meanings of the word, they feed on it.
And so the way that the media, who the elite own, whip us all up into this frenzy of patriotic emotions, that, the way they study black magic, they know what they're doing, don't they?
Oh, sure. They use neuro-linguistic programming techniques. They use some of the most insidious techniques available, and they do it knowingly. Many of them don't know the impact on their own karma for participating, though.
But do they know that they are giving us their karma at the same time?
Oh, sure. I wouldn't think that Wolf Blitzer knows. I don't think he thinks about things at that level. But the people that manipulate him surely do.
Oh boy, it takes their evil even another step deeper, doesn't it?
Doesn't it, though?
How have you figured out how we can disconnect from their karma?
There's many different ways of doing this, and basically you don't disconnect from their karma. What you try and do is manage your own relationship to karma. And so you would do things like meditation and other efforts that would enhance good karma. And that's going to vary on a person-to-person kind of basis. Some people just simply are not suited for meditation, and that's also a function of their karma from previous lives, because when you reincarnate, you carry along your sack of karma that's unused. But you can burn karma up. If you really want an understanding of it, the Jane, there's this German fellow, I'll see if I can find the book, I've got it lying around here, who spent Germans, of course, can codify anything down to the hairs on the gnat's butt, and he did a really good job of codifying karma and how it works, and explains how to go about doing things in such a way as to get rid of what little bits of bad karma you may have, or stop accumulating bad karma and make the shift. Some of the things can be, for instance, as we're doing now, attempting, without intrusion, to place certain facts out there such that those people who are beginning to become aware and who need the guidance will find them for universe's sake, not our own. And then once you've done that, you've sort of transferred a little bit of good karma, and it comes back in this positive feedback loop to you. You've burned up, in essence, a little bit of bad karma you may have had. So efforts such as this, however much risk and everything they may place us at as individuals, such as being on the radio and discussing things the power elite would necessarily like hidden, can indeed, at a personal level, elevate you along that path.
Boy, well, for everything that I've been doing for the last 20 years, I hope my karma is scrubbed clean, but then again...
Yeah, I know how it goes, and we're in a contaminated environment, bearing in mind that some of this karma, as we know, doesn't come from us, but it comes from the collective in which we exist at the moment. All of us go along with the idea of, what's his name, the moron there that wanted to invade Iraq because there was no weapons there, and we all, quote, believed it. Yeah. The more people that believed it, the more it polluted those of us that did not believe.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Now, you're talking about some of the things, we're going to talk today about some of the things that you are seeing in the future, and I did listen to Jeff Rince's latest show, so I know what some of them are. But I want to talk about fear. And when people listen to your predictions, that's what comes up, is fear.
Yeah, and that's an artifact of our methodology and also our society. There's two forces at work there. The first is that we aggregate vast numbers of words based on an emotional association, and it's just simply easier for us to find words at the extreme end of the emotional ranges, and fear is at the extreme end of the emotional range. So we find those words more easily. Plus, these days it has to be acknowledged that there actually are more of those words to be found, simply because everybody is in a higher state of anxiety and tension, which are subsets of fear.
Well, doesn't fear, I'm sure you said this, but doesn't fear turn into survival? And isn't fear, in reality, a good thing for us?
That would be true if it were left up to you and not generated. So, for instance, in any given life, you can sit out there and look at things that are instantly fear-causing in you at a personal level, where your body reacts before your mind has a chance to react, before your brain does. So, for instance, you're driving a car, and all of a sudden you find yourself slamming on the brakes because you nearly were in an accident, but there's that fear rush. That's generated internally. The externally generated ones are going to come in through the means, where you're going to have to think about these, react to certain neuro-linguistic programming techniques that load your mind with images and words, and then respond in that level of fear. People who are sensitive will notice that there's actually two levels within your body at which those fear things exist. The first level is down near what's known as the Muladhara chakra, the lower one, in the about 2 inches below your navel, what they call the hara in Japanese, or the tandian in Chinese Taoist, and it's the lower one. The second level of fear comes from the generated one, which has to go through your mind first, and it is at a higher level and is just below your heart chakra at the top of the solar plexus. You actually feel the two different levels of fear in different places. So I would agree that the one level, which comes from your bottom lower gut, is indeed a survival instinct. Slam on the brakes, run away from the bear, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
But the other is participating in this grander scheme where you are being manipulated. And you can recognize those two fears, and oddly enough, it is a combination of the two that produce a sort of an unwavering paranoia that gets people into trouble. Paranoia, to a certain extent, generated from the bottom is good, but from the combination.
Well, if it comes from the chakra that is very near the power chakra, which is right below the heart, that kind of fear probably would generate war or warlike activity.
Or fear thereof, and that's just exactly what they want, because then there's that giant karmic stream being created, all these karmans. They're not actually created. Karmans exist as a separate form of matter that just float around, and it's the creation of these energy thoughts, the thought and the energy that actually propagates it out in the universe that draws the karman in kind of like a magnetic effect. And so it serves the purposes of the powers that be to have dissipative karma, as it's actually called. And basically what they're attempting to do when they create a war like that, there's all these various different levels going on. George Bush probably did think he was doing something to avenge his papa against the horrid, evil bad guy that he saw, as a looming monster in his mind. But at the same time, there was probably at the background a level of attempt to dissipate large quantities of bad karma. And it can be done. It is a hard, difficult process, but if you were a terribly evil person and you accumulated vast quantities of bad karma, one way to get rid of it is to, and thus save yourself having to individually burn it through, is to dissipate that karma by getting lots and lots and lots of people to accept it willingly. Now, there's the rub, okay? There's the hidden rule in universe, and that's why everybody says, well, you're absolutely full of BS, because the Illuminati, if they were these evil guys, would never tell us that they were evil guys in doing this. And that's where they are wrong. Indeed, they must do that in universe in order to get you to, quote, willingly accept that bad karma that they wish to dissipate. So here they are with a giant sack of these karmans, and they want to float them out over the whole populace. One way to get everybody to accept it willingly is to go through these laborious steps of building up this image in their mind, and then having us willingly say, yes, I'm all for killing, death, whatever. And at that point, the karmans start dissipating from them and spreading out.
If you just think about this, when they invented television, they called the shows that went on television programs. And so when you select a